Hey there, I'm Kay, and I wanted to thank you for joining me for today's budgeting video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my December monthly budget, except it's going to be a little different than how I've normally budgeted here on my channel because I'm going to be following the anti-budget method, which is new and exciting for me. So why don't we go ahead and get started. So we're gonna go through the struggle of opening up this monster. I am gonna grab some stickers. So I have these for bill pay, and then I'm just gonna use these black ones. I didn't make any particular stickers for December because I wanted to try and use up some of what I've already made. So here's the task. Flipping into December because this thing is so thick. I'm really impressed that these rings were able to hold this much. These are like the biggest expander rings I've been able to find by far. They're from Staples. And I'm going to start with my monthly calendar and just throw my bills on here really quickly. So my original plan for December was to use December as a golden month, a 3 paycheck month. And I could do that because technically I have one paycheck from the previous Wednesday that I was going to use as my first paycheck, paid on the 8th to use on my second paycheck. And I could use my paycheck on the 22nd as a third paycheck. But since I'm not paying any debt this month, I feel like there's no point in having any extra income because I'm also not really planning to save much either. So I want to be able to use January as a 3 paycheck month for when I resume my debt payoff plan. So we're only working with 2 paychecks here in December for my anti-budget. So I'm just going to use that as my off month, my November payday. And then I have the 8th. And then those are the only 2 paychecks I'm going to be using. I did make green stickers for my bills. So my regular fixed expenses are what I'll be marking on here right now. So the first one is always my Spotify, which is $5. And then I have my Sprint phone bill, which is $54. And then my car insurance is with Safeco, and that's $133. And then I have UMass tuition payments monthly for $50 a month. I have an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription that comes in at $30 a month now. And last but not least, I do have my rent and utilities. And I do categorize them as a fixed expense because they are due like the same time every month. They do not have a fixed amount because utilities are slightly variable. So that one will be blank on the dollar amount. I'm going to go ahead and add them. So on the first I have my Spotify. And then on the 10th next I have Sprint. And then on the 13th, I have Safeco. And then on the 15th is UMass. And then Adobe on the 26th. Since that's a Sunday, it'll probably get charged either the 24th or 27th, but it's okay. It's on auto pay and I will allot for it. And then rent and utilities, I like to pay a couple days before the end of the month, so I'm going to put that on the 29th. So those are all of my fixed expenses, and I will be tracking my spending, but because I'm anti-budgeting, I will not be tracking by category. I'm just going to be having an entire lump sum for all of my variable spending. So let me show you how that's going to work in terms of numbers on the monthly budget. So let's get started. And I'll zoom in so we can get a little sharper look here. So now that we're going to get started on the numbers side, I do want to briefly explain some of the research I've done on the AntiBudget and how I'm going to apply some of the methodologies to this monthly budget. I originally learned about the AntiBudget actually from a comment on my 2021 debt payoff video. It was a comment from It's a Budgeting Life for Me, where she explains that sometimes she will use an AntiBudget to kind of shake things up for her, and that basically it's all about taking care of the necessities first, and then whatever is left over is yours to spend however you like. So I've done a little bit of research from some family and financial blogs on Google. Basically, if you just search, what I've searched is actually how to anti-budget, and the order is sometimes switched, but the essential things in the order that I'm going to be following is to first pay your bills, which for me is my fixed expenses, which you saw on my calendar, and then pay yourself first, save, invest, and stuff. And again, sometimes these two are actually switched, but I feel like you can't pay yourself if you can't pay your bills first. So, and then the third thing is to just spend what's left. And you can spend it however you want to or need to, as long as you just don't go over the amount that you set aside for yourself. So before I can calculate what I can spend, I first need to estimate my income, and I'm only expecting income from my job, my main source of income. And I'm going to budget a little higher than I have in the past couple months because I know I've had some expense reports come through. So I'm going to budget for $2,000 for the whole month. So now I have an idea of what I'm working with. We can go ahead and pull in all of those fixed expenses that I marked on my calendar. So we have Spotify is 5, Sprint 54, Safeco for 133, UMass for 50, and then Adobe for 30. And then for rent and utilities, I'm going to estimate 900. It has been pretty much my safe bet. I've fallen around like the 870 to 885 mark pretty consistently. So I'm going to use 900 as my benchmark pretty much. So I pretty much need to go in and total these up. I'll be using my little calculator today. 5 plus 54 plus 133 plus 50 plus 30 plus 900. So we come up at 1172. So it looks like a little more than half of my income will be used towards the fixed expenses. So that leaves 828 left over. Now, this is how I've been carrying out my budget sheets pretty much throughout the entire year. Normally, next I would go into variable expenses, but I am following this payment flow. So I'm going to pay myself first by putting some savings aside in my sinking funds. So my sinking funds, I have a car fund for car maintenance, and then I have home, medical, personal, and I have a vet fund, which is just more like a savings account for my cat for some emergencies and large purchases. So I have 828. I'm not really planning to save that much. I think what I'll do, because I have 5 sinking funds, I'll set aside 100, so I'll put 20 in each of them. So I'll make that the goal, to set aside $100. So that is going to leave $728 for variable expenses. Because 828, if I use 728, then that leaves the 100 for my sinking funds. And I'm not making any debt payments this month. I am taking a break, and so that I have the time to formulate my plan of attack going into the next year. And extra savings really isn't being used. I'm not really saving in my emergency fund right now. I'm mostly doing cash savings in my sinking funds this year. So this 728 is going to be an all-encompassing amount for all my variable categories. So I normally have allowance, food, gas, laundry, and pets, and I would assign a value to each of these categories to try to stay within that value for that category. But now this is just going to be like a big lump sum bank of $728 to just cover all of this stuff. And it's going to be really interesting for me to do this because I want to have a little bit more accurate gauge of where I'm putting my money, which is why I think that this AntiBudget is really interesting, especially if you're new to budgeting or you feel like your budgeting isn't quite working right or it's getting a little stale. So I have been tracking my spending for the month of December, but not by category, just by like the amount and where. And so I'm basically trying to figure out, like, do I need to increase my food category? I am getting very close or overspending in food a lot. With gas, it's kind of tricky because sometimes I'm traveling and sometimes I'm not. But, like, am I overspending in gas? Laundry is, like, a thing that I wish I can cut back on, but doesn't really seem feasible. And then with pet spending, that's another category, too, where it's kind of iffy. But my main goal out of this is to really get an accurate idea of how much I spend on food and then also how much I spend on myself on a typical month. These two are basically what I'm trying to paint a little bit of a newer portrait of. And ultimately, regardless of where and how the money is spent, I just need to make sure that I stay in this proximity amount. Obviously, this is my estimated monthly budget. So when I get my paycheck numbers in and I do my paycheck budget, then I'll have a much more accurate picture of how much money I have in and out and where I may be able to make adjustments if needed. But there was my monthly budget. I am going to show how I get my estimated numbers because sometimes I do that and sometimes I don't. What I think I want to do for December is I think I'm going to do paycheck 1 and paycheck 2 budgets in the same video. I'm just trying to give myself a little bit lighter content load as I just work on coming back to YouTube, and I'm like working through like a pretty bad depressive episode, so I don't want to like overwhelm myself and like force myself to do things when I'm not ready for them. So I'm going to probably only upload a few more videos this month, but I'm going to get the estimated numbers in here so that I don't have to do them when I do the paycheck budget video. So I'm going to split it 50-50 between the income, between the two paychecks. And then for fixed expenses, what I think I want to do is leave rent by itself on the second paycheck, because if I'm only expecting $1,000 and I have a $900 rent, you know, it's cutting it pretty close. So I'm going to put the rent alone. That leaves us with the $100 that I will put in the sinking funds. And then, so for 1,000, so we got to get all of these in here. So those total up to 272. And then 1,000 minus 272 leaves the 728 for the variable expenses, which is good because I like to have my bucket of variable spending up front for the entire month rather than have to like split it between paychecks. I don't mind splitting my sinking funds and stuff between paychecks, but the variable spending I really want to have up front ideally. So that's what I'm gonna do, is put that bucket in here. That's set. And then let me just add in, well, I actually don't need the categories because I already know. And I'm just going to add the bill names in here. And between the two paychecks, that's how it's going to zero out. It's pretty simple on this one. And I'm hoping that that simplicity will also help relieve some of my like stress and anxiety, where I really won't have to worry about tracking too hard by category and everything, and then making a whole video about everything. So that's it. There is my December monthly AntiBudget. I hope it was short, sweet, simple, and easy to follow along and understand. And I'm really curious to see what you guys think about how I've structured this, and if you think it's gonna work out for me and help me see what I'm looking for. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, you're the best. And if you're not already subscribed, you should totally do so because it's free. It really, really helps me out. And I am just shy of 900 by the time I post this video. By the end of the year, I'd love to hit 1,000. I feel like that's kind of insane, but that would ultimately be like the best Christmas gift ever. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you down in the comments. I hope to see you in the next video. Peace out.